Hello everyone. In this video, you will see what is user data and metadata in EC2 and how to access this. So user data is nothing but a script that you can provide at the launch of a new EC2 instance. And instead of you waiting for the EC2 instance to come up and running some commands, you can provide that as a script at instance launch, and AWS will run that when the instance launches, so that when you log into the EC2 instance, all those commands are already executed. So it saves time, it standardizes the way you launch an EC2 instance. So that is user data. Metadata is data about the instance itself. So when you are launching an instance, you provide some inputs. Also, after the instance is launched, AWS configures the EC2 instance and say for example assigns a public IP address, public host name, or a private IP address and a private host name. So all these details, which is the information about the instance, is called as metadata, and that can be accessed from within the EC2 instance itself. And in fact, metadata can be accessed only from within the EC2 instance. You cannot access it from outside. And to access it, you can use this URL http:// and this IP address is important, 169.254.169.254. So here are some examples of what kind of information you can access as part of the metadata. So the base URL is http this IP address slash latest slash meta dash data, and then you can provide the necessary what you can say the path to get the different information. Say for example, you want to check from within the EC2 instance which availability zone this instance is launched in, then you can use this URL. If you want to find out the public IP address or the public host name, you can use these URLs. Sometimes AWS announces some scheduled maintenance and you may want to automate something from your EC2 instance, that if there's a scheduled what you can say maintenance, then find out the time, and before that time maybe shut down the EC2 instance or trigger some command or maybe take a backup or whatever, right? So you can use this URL event slash maintenance slash scheduled. If you are using an EC2 spot instance, then the spot instance can be terminated by AWS whenever they need the capacity back. So usually spot instance is where you can purchase AWS's surplus capacity at a discounted, very discounted rate. But then the drawback is when AWS needs it back, they can simply delete your instance, but they give you a 2-minute notice period. And how do you know? How do you keep track? So from the EC2 instance, you can write a script which checks every, let's say every 5 seconds, whether there's any termination planned for the spot instance. So for that, you can use this metadata URL, which is the instance that action. And if the outcome is terminate, so this is the output, action terminate and the scheduled time for termination. Then you can trigger a script which can maybe take a backup and shut down or whatever. May not be backup, but maybe save the session state or transfer the state to some other EC2 instance or trigger a launch of new instance. So you can think of various things how you want to implement. So this is the metadata. So let's now see how to use user data to run a script for during instance launch. And again, this script is run only during instance launch. Okay, so it is not run at every boot time, only during the instance launch. So I'm going to launch an EC2 instance in Mumbai region. I already logged into AWS and I'm at the EC2 dashboard in the Mumbai region. So I'll select on launch instance and I'm going to select the Ubuntu image. Now usually what happens, you launch an EC2 instance and then you log into the EC2 instance, you update the system packages, you install the necessary software, you do the necessary configurations, deploy the code, everything, and your application is ready. Now if you have a script, then you can use that instead at the instance launch time. So to provide the user data, you have to go to the bottom of the configure instance tab, and under advanced details you will see the user data. So this is where you can copy and paste your script. If you have that script on your desktop, you can choose it as a file or you can provide it as a text. So I'm going to paste this script. So what it will do is, first when the instance starts, we are going to update the system packages, and just so that we know what is actually going on, we are dumping this message into a file so that we know what is actually going on. So after system packages are updated, then we will install Apache and PHP. Then the code will be downloaded from GitHub, and then the code will be copied to var www.html, and our sample application will be ready for use. So simply pasting this code without actually logging into the system after startup, everything will be ready for me. So let me go and give the rest of the inputs. So I will keep the rest inputs as same. I will add a name tag, let's say my web1, configure the necessary security group so that HTTP port is allowed, and then launch the EC2 instance. So now when EC2 instance launches, all the commands in that script will be run automatically as root, and I don't have to wait for the EC2 instance launch to complete and then manually run those commands. So I'm going to wait till this is running and then try to access the EC2 instance. And maybe I'll also paste the IP address here, and you can see right now nothing is coming up because it is still in the process of installing as part of the user data. So let me restart, try to access. Yeah, so now the server is up and running, and if I try to see the file, so the file to which we are logging is this one. So you can see update system has been done, installing packages is currently going on. So without me running these commands, AWS is already running that. Downloading code, system is ready. So now if I simply restart, you can see my web application is up and running, right? So this is how you can use the user data. Now how to access the metadata. So to access the metadata, you can simply access the URL, HTTP, and that IP address. So from within an EC2 instance only you can access the metadata, and you use the command curl to reach out to the URL. So the URL is 169.254.169.254. So if I simply give this URL, you will find that these are the different versions of metadata. So from historically, there would have been different versions providing different set of information. And there is also something called as latest. So latest is a soft link which always points to the latest version. Okay, so instead of you remembering what is the latest version, you can simply use this. And here you will have three types of information: some dynamic information, the metadata, and the user data. So the user data script is also available via this URL. And if you see, this is the exact same script that we had run. Now you need to be cautious that when you are using the user data script, you should not put any sensitive information like personal information or username, passwords, and so on, because it is plain text, and anyone who has access to the EC2 instance simply launching this URL will be able to read what was the script that was given, and they would be able to see this information. So that is one caution you should follow in user data. And now if I give meta slash data, then you will see what different information about the EC2 instance can be accessed as part of metadata. So for example, I can access the public host name, public IP address, right? So this is the public host name, and you can see it's the same over here, right? So all this information you can access from within the EC2 instance itself. Then you want to look for any, say for example, we saw an example from a spot instance perspective. So you can see the instance action, and you can write a script which continuously runs or maybe runs every 5 seconds. And here the output is none currently, but if the output is some action, let's say terminate and the time, then maybe from the script will then trigger some action, maybe save the current session or stop accepting new requests or whatever, so that the spot instance has been prepared for termination and some other instance can take over your application workload. So this is how you can access the metadata. Now, as part of the sample application also, we are making use of this metadata. So I will show you. So here you can see we are accessing the host name using a command. But instead of command, so and I will show you the web page. So the sample web page here we have is showing the host name. Now instead of we accessing using a system command via PHP. Now what we'll do, we will access it using the metadata. Or say suppose I want to give the public host name. Okay, so I will display this, okay, as part of the web page. So now you can see if I refresh, it is showing me this public host name of this EC2 instance. So sometimes you need to access this information, maybe while some IP table rules are being automatically configured, or for whatever reasons, you may want to access the metadata. And classic example is for a spot instance to know when it would get terminated, or for any planned scheduled maintenance that AWS has planned, you can know from within the EC2 instance. So that's about the user data and the metadata. Like I said, be cautious from a user data perspective, not to put any sensitive information as part of the user data script. So that's it. Thanks for watching.